Hello, good afternoon. Nice to see you all. Can I just say that I've done a session yesterday, the one the day before that. I'm doing the debate, but of all the sessions I've done, this is the one I've really been looking forward to, and this is the one person I've been really looking forward to talking to. So welcome in, Hislop.
Thank you. This is the only session that I haven't been looking forward to.
Well, you'll find out why soon. No, I'm joking. But I don't know how many of you are familiar with Private Eye, but for those of you who aren't, and apologies to those of you who are, it is probably the premier satirical magazine in the world. Started in the 60s in England. It's had a huge impact on journalism. Anybody who read Private Eye when they were young and still read it, like myself, would be lying if they didn't say it had influenced how we write, how we look at the world. Ian Hislop is only the second proper editor in its history, right?
Third. The son of the first editor is here.
Well, Christopher Booker, yes.
Booker.
Christopher Booker, Richard Ingram's and you.
And me,
yes. So three editors.
But I've been there the longest.
Yeah, and the longest serving, and you're the only TV star who's there.
And I'm actually, yes, let's say that.
Let's be honest about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I assume many of you have seen him on Have I Got News for You, where you've been for how long? How many years?
That's 36 years.
And how many episodes?
About 2 million.
Well, there you are. So we're going to talk a little bit about satire, about the world today, about humor, and how we see things. So if I was to ask you, who is the funniest public figure in the world today, from your perspective, who would it be?
Yes. From my perspective, the funniest figure is Trump.
Why?
From the world's perspective, he's the least funny thing that's ever happened.
The scariest figure, perhaps, yes.
Yes. I think we've never had anyone so unashamedly ghastly.
Yeah.
Normally, there's the old-fashioned idea that people are hypocritical. They say one thing, they do another. And this is the tribute that vice pays to virtue. Trump doesn't believe in any of that, or indeed anything else. And so he literally says what is in his head, and often contradicts himself in the same sentence.
Yeah.
And it's the first time that doesn't matter.
Yes.
So I think what we've got is an assault on reality. And to see him doing that it's terrifying, but it is very, very funny. And I think many of us have got into the habit of waking up, you think, I'll see what the weather is, but before that, I'll see what Trump said. And so you get into a point where he's going to invade Greenland. That's this week. I think he knows where Greenland is.
Vaguely, yeah.
But he may be confusing it with Poundland, which is quite a well-known English department store. Yeah. But I suspect at a certain point, I mean, Trump we have a cover in which we have a photograph and we put a stupid bubble on it with a joke in it. This is a very long English tradition. Hogarth, Gilray, it's 18th century, it must be okay. So when Trump decides to invade Venezuela, we put a bubble on Trump saying, I'm going to invade Venezuela. One of his generals next to him says, Caracas, and he says, yeah, I'm completely insane. It's not terribly sophisticated, but it does make us laugh. And he continues to do this. And I was looking back, Vir asked me to look back at his first term. And when he was inaugurated, we literally had a picture of him with his hand on the Bible, saying, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing like the truth. And that was the satirical joke, but next to it, there was another joke with a man saying, keep your hands where we can see them. Which is less satirical, but more amusing. So he has been extraordinary for satire. And one of the problems people say is he's already satirizing himself. What can you add? And what you can always add is the thing that he doesn't like. So if you say to Trump, you're sexist, you're misogynist, you're huge, you eat Big Macs. He says, so what? Yeah. You say you're a big orange man, baby. He goes, yeah. If you say to him, you're a really terrible businessman, you never made any money, the reason you won't show us your tax receipts is you never made any profits, he's very cross. And that is the important thing. So you have to work out with Trump ways to make him ridiculous in ways that are not popular.
But how can you, it's a valid question, how can you make fun of a man who is already so ridiculous?
Yeah, you have to try harder. Yeah. I mean, people said the same thing in Britain about Boris Johnson,
yeah.
Who was terrifically good for sales. I don't know if Boris Johnson swum into your consciousness at all. Does anyone? He was Prime Minister. I know we have a lot of them now. But he was a Tory old Etonian. He was big on television. He had ruffled hair. And he appeared on this television program, Have I Got News for You? And he, after his appearance, which showed that he couldn't run a panel show, let alone a country, people said to me, is Boris Johnson a very stupid man, or is he a clever man pretending to be stupid? I said, the latter.
Yes.
Then, when we finished the show, he came up to me and he said, do you know what my party's policy on immigration is? And I said, no. And he said, damn, because I've got to give a speech about it.
That's a true story, isn't it?
That is a true story.
Yeah?
And I'm afraid that is the level. We had a very chaotic period when he was in charge, which should have surprised no one at all. And he became, rather like Trump, a great seller for the magazine.
But you had the sense, as you say, with Boris Johnson, that this was a persona and he was actually quite bright. With Trump, you don't have that sense. This is what you see is what you get, right?
Yes. And if someone asks him, why do you want to invade Iceland? He says, because I want to own it. Normally, you don't say that.
Normally, yes.
As the leader of one of the world's larger countries. And then you say, well, there's this alliance called NATO, which you're part of. And Iceland is part of Denmark, so you're not meant to invade your allies. Sorry? Oh, yes, sorry.
Greenland.
I was thinking of Poundland again. Iceland's another big English department store. Yes. Though they are both part of NATO. No, they're not. But again, none of these
So you say to him, if you invade Greenland, it's part of NATO and you're an ally. What does he say?
I think he looks confused. And then B, he doesn't care. Yeah. I mean, again, I probably read too much of what he says, but he was asked whether he believed in international law, and he said no. He said, I don't believe in any other morality except my own. That's a low bar.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen his personal morality.
Yeah.
It's not great. And so you get into a world where he literally says what's at the top of his head. So I quite enjoy watching him on aeroplanes because he comes round the side of the toilet in Air Force One and then starts talking to journalists. Yeah. Which, again, I know he hates us, which is good. But the level at which he hates us is new. I mean, when he called the female journalist Piggy, that was pretty extraordinary. And again, he has no sense of irony, so if you think male chauvinist Piggy, it won't register.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I suppose you're saying it's a problem to exaggerate it. I think what you have to do is record it and try and give it some context.
But, you know, I will say to his credit that as much as he hates journalists, at least he talks to journalists. In this country, when our leaders hate journalists, they try and arrest us.
Well, yes, I'm sure you're right. But if you look at the composition of the press in the White House now, most of the main journalistic organizations aren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's the Arkansas Christian Science Monitor bi-weekly. I think they get a place now.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it's packed full of people. I'm the man who, I don't know if you remember when Zelensky went and sat there. The person who asked Zelensky a question, you think you've got one chance with the Ukrainian leader. What do you ask? This man says, why aren't you wearing a suit?
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure that counts as journalism.
No, of course it doesn't. But
I mean, and he didn't ask the Saudi leader, did he?
But what mystifies me, I think mystifies most people, is why do Americans keep voting for this man? He's clearly an idiot, right? So why do they vote for him?
Well, you may have answered your own question there.
Yeah.
But if you look at, I mean, the vote was 52-48, which is not a landslide. It's not the greatest ringing endorsement in human history. I mean, for example, the vote for Brexit in Britain was 52-48. I just bring that up because I want to.
But someone like Boris, I mean, everyone said he's going to balls it up, he's a joker, he's a threat. But the Conservative Party still elected him leader. Americans saw Trump in one term. They saw the chaos he wrought, and they re-elected him. So what is it about democracy that attracts us to these people?
Well, there is a feeling, and you do hear it now, and one of the headlines that I keep running in Private Eye is populism still popular, which shouldn't surprise any of us, is that people now repeatedly say, that is the sort of leader I would like to go and have a drink with. So they said this about Boris Johnson, they said it about Nigel Farage, who now runs our...
Your opposite?
How am I going to describe this party? I got into trouble on television by saying Nigel Farage and mispronouncing his name, and I called him Nigel Far Right, which I thought was funny, but his party didn't. And so there were a number of complaints. But let's call it the Far Right Party. And people say, he's accessible, he's likable, he's human. We want leaders who we feel we could sit down and have a drink with.
Would you want to have a drink with Nigel Farage?
No.
Well, exactly.
And Boris is exactly the sort of person you wouldn't go and have a drink with. As witnessed repeatedly, he doesn't seem to have any friends. He's got a lot of children, but they're underage, so I don't think they're allowed in the pub. So I find this concept of accessibility, I am still essentially of a generation where I would like my politicians to know what they're talking about, to have read some of the briefing papers. I mean, not all. Some would do fine. A4 sheet.
Or the Daily Mails.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not even A4, is it? Can't get enough in. So I do think we've fallen into that populist trap, which is, Britain is in no way alone in this. There's plenty of other places in Europe. There's the cult of the populist strongman in Latin America. I mean, it's pretty current. And I think that's a problem. And I think we do have to address, with Farage, the only thing that works, and I'm sorry if it sounds incredibly small and niche, the only thing that works is challenge. So Farage, he was asked about all his money seems to be paid into a private company. So a journalist said to him, why is your money in this company and you don't pay tax on it. Why is that? And Farage said, look, companies make money and they create jobs. Are you against creating jobs? Do you not want employment? Typical journalism. The second question, how many employees does this company have? 1. Is his name Nigel Farage? It is, isn't it? And that is what you have to do. I mean, and that is what Private Eye tries to do, is do the joke, but do the journalistic detail with it.
But assuming Farage becomes prime minister, which is not unthinkable by any means, the way the world is going, it's good for you guys, right? It's good for people who do satire and attack politicians and make fun of them?
I think it is good, providing he remains within a tradition which is fairly strong in Britain, is that you are meant to laugh at those who offer satire and criticism. I mean, you may not like it very much, but in Britain you have to pretend to.
Yeah.
This is a long political tradition. Our problem at Private Eye is a certain amount of political interference, but more it is the problems of libel. It's the courts. Yeah. And that is where my real expertise comes in, because I have fought 42 libel actions.
How many have you lost?
Thank you. How many
have you lost?
Ask me how many I've won.
Yes?
1.
Which one? But some of them were quite extraordinary. Remember, the Yorkshire Ripper's wife sued you and won.
Yes, which again gives some idea of how popular I am as a figure. Other people, it's celebrities, television people. I lost to the wife of a serial killer. And I lost what then was a record amount of money. I lost £600,000, which was the damages. What's that in rupees?
Economists in the audience, right? 5 crores? 5 crores, yeah.
Is it more than a taxi from the Marriott?
A little bit, yes.
So I lost this staggering amount of money, and there were £700,000 costs, and essentially I bankrupt the magazine in one day in court. And this is what you asked earlier. Yeah. I think it's the only quote of mine that will survive after I'm dead. I came out of court, and I was so angry. There was a bank of reporters and photographers, and I said, well, if that's justice, and I couldn't think of anything. So I said, if that's justice, I'm a banana. Which unfortunately then sort of went down in all the books. And I'm often asked to explain it, and it doesn't mean anything.
But it's a good quote, though.
It was a good quote, and it meant that we could set up a fund, which is the other business model which I think I've invented, which is we make terrible mistakes and lose money, and the readers pay.
But do you actually raise a lot of money from these public appeals?
We did. We raised a lot of money for that, and I have to say there is a happy ending in that we went to the appeal court, and the damages were brought down to 60,000. They were cut in by 1/10. The point was conceded, and the law essentially for juries to just make up any amount that was in their head was changed. So it had a vaguely happy ending, and we gave all the money to the victims of the serial killer. So it was virtue signaling on a grand scale.
Well, it was a good thought, right? But I wanted to ask you about defamation, because we're always being told, I'm looking at it only from a journalist's perspective, that be careful, you'll get sued. But on the whole, people who sue and win tend to be A, rich because they can afford to sue, and B, usually guilty, right?
Yes, I would say that's entirely true, because you've mentioned no names.
All right, so tell us about Robert Maxwell.
Yes, the other people you can mention are largely dead.
Mohammed Al-Fayed is alive or dead?
Sorry?
Is Al-Fayed alive?
Mohammed Al-Fayed is dead.
Okay, you can say what you like now, then.
I can say what I like about him, and it eventually turned out not only his corruption and his predatory behavior to young women, but they spent a lot of time in court fighting Muhammad al-Fayed. I once did a talk rather like this, and a boy stood up and he said, "Would it embarrass you to know that I am related to Muhammad al-Fayed?" And I said, "I'm not related to him, I'm not embarrassed." So he was in court a lot. Robert Maxwell was a big media owner. He owned the Daily Mirror. He was a British member of Parliament. He was an incredibly rich and powerful man and deeply corrupt. And he sued me on numerous occasions. And the last occasion he sued, Private Eye suggested that he'd been stealing money from his own pension fund and therefore essentially stripping all his workers of their pension in life. He sued, and he would have won. But fortunately, he didn't, because he drowned. And I know that sounds callous, which it's meant to. But we got into some trouble because we put a picture of his funeral on the cover, which is not in terribly good taste.
What did you say on the cover?
The headstone said, "Here lies Robert Maxwell," and I said, "Well, he lied everywhere else."
And you were vindicated. The allegations that Private Eye made, then it was found to be true after he died. The pension fund stealing, etc.
He had stolen £11 million off his pensioners. It took 10 years for them trying to sue to get their recompense. And it was an absolutely classic case of we did make the right call and we were slightly lucky. But he was a sort of a very, very aggressive bullying man. And he had what we thought was just endless reserves. And that is a problem with the very, very rich.
Yeah.
The only way to essentially fight a libel action against someone that rich is to make them think you are madder than them.
Yeah.
And that you don't care and you'll fight it.
It's hard.
I mean, sorry, I'm
no, go ahead.
interrupting you, but there's a lawyer's firm in Britain called Peter Carter Ruck.
Oh dear, okay. Go ahead, sir.
And they sue us all the time. And originally, when I started about 30 years ago, we decided it'd be quite funny if every week there was a misprint. So instead of it saying Peter Carter Ruck, an F appeared where the R should be. And we thought this joke was very funny for about 10 years. And eventually Peter Carter Ruck, who's a very distinguished London solicitor, he rang me up and he said, "You are pathetic. I do not want to appear in your stupid little magazine as Peter Carter Fuck." And I said, "Absolutely, Peter, it will not happen again." So the next week, he was Peter Farter Cuck. It is very grown-up stuff at Private Eye.
He was also regularly called the world's worst libel lawyer in your publication.
He was,
yes. Which
which was a bit rich given that he did win a lot.
That's right, yeah.
We finally won a case against them. And one of his top men had said, "You're going to lose this case, and I am going to buy myself a red Ferrari." That was his lawyer. And they lost the case, and we bought him a dinky toy red Ferrari. So it is possible. But again, they were... we're doing a debate about free speech tonight, and I was threatened with jail by the Attorney General, who's the sort of government's lawyer, for contempt of court, which essentially is a charge suggesting that you think the court is incompetent and will come to the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And fortunately, in a lower court, a very, very wise judge, Justice Popplewell, decided I was innocent. Could have fooled me, but... and that was marvellous, but the Attorney General decided that he would appeal the case. This was a national emergency. And so I was tried again by the appeal court, and the Attorney General asked for a 2-year committal. He wanted me inside for 2 years. And the three judges, I think, had been watching reality TV. And Britain's Got Talent and Dancing with the Stars, because the main judge said, we have considered the Attorney General's request, and our verdict is, and then there was just silence. And they ramped up the tension. And I had my toothbrush in my pocket, and my wife was pregnant. She was in the front row looking desperate. And this pause went on for about 2.5 minutes, and he said, we have decided to issue you with a fine. And then they said, if you're brought in front of us for contempt again, you are in real trouble.
How much was the fine?
The fine was £20,000.
Which is better than going to jail, but still a lot of money, right?
Yes, and I had some vague romantic fantasy that there was a British editor called Lee Hunt who edited a newspaper from jail rather successfully, and I thought I could become him. But then I thought, no, I'd much rather keep out. So there is a risk, and Rupert Murdoch, who, you know, is another proprietor who has a certain record with us, there was a court case involving phone tapping and whether his organisation had acted badly and irresponsibly with celebrities and the royal family. And on the first day of the trial, his chief executive, Rebecca Brooks, who was on trial, it was Halloween, and we put her on the front cover saying this was a new Halloween outfit, that she would scare your children if you put this on. And unfortunately, this was day one of the trial. And during a trial, you're not really meant to suggest that the defendant is a Halloween queen. So the contempt charge came up again.
And?
I offered a particularly fine defense.
Which was?
That she wasn't that scary.
But she was, actually, wasn't she?
She was incredibly scary. She was wearing a sort of Puritan outfit. Anyway, she was found innocent as chief executive. The editor of the paper, who she was having an affair with, was guilty. But she was innocent. I'd like you all to remember that, in case you're ever asked by a policeman.
But is there a government in the UK in the years you've been editor that you haven't attacked or fought with?
No.
No. And is that like a matter of principle? You're an equal opportunity offender?
I'm afraid I think it's a matter of temperament. Yes, technically, I mean, our readers sometimes forget, particularly after long periods of one government or another. So after 14 years of Tory government, we had a new Labour government in. And fairly soon, it became clear that there were certain things the Labour government were going to repeat in terms of error. And we started pointing this out. And some of our readers said, oh, great. What, you want the Tories back, do you? Pathetic. I thought at least you were proper Labour supporters. And then you had to point out that the point of the satirical magazine is to have a go at the government and to try and point out what they're doing wrong or what needs to be said. And so slowly people adjust. But because I've been there for 40 years, when the Tory government came in, people wrote in saying, oh, what, you want the Labour government back, do you? Pathetic. We thought we could rely on you. And that is the essence of it. People say, oh, will you attack anyone? I say, no, don't attack anyone. We try and target the people we think merit the attack. And that's the point. But the idea that you would be repeating propaganda, essentially to say the government's great, is not on. We had a big inquiry into the press called the Leveson Inquiry. And at the end of it, I had to give evidence And at the end of it, I said, right, from now on, we're only going to run covers like this. And I put a cover on with 4 kittens, lovely kittens. And the first kitten was saying, I think the government's great. And the second one was saying, MPs are fantastic value. And then the last one was saying, and the opposition are great too if they get in.
Which is,
And that seemed to be the level of devotion that people want. But we can't do that. I mean, that's not what we're for.
you mentioned you're nearly going to jail. Your predecessor was nearly put in jail by James Goldsmith. Are you ever frightened? Do you ever worry about the consequences before you go to print?
Yes, I mean, I'm not completely stupid. Nowadays, our court system is so clogged up, I wouldn't be there for 4 years. So I'd probably be on a tag, which, you know, I don't walk that fast anyway now, so that would be all right. No, there is a worry. I'm much more worried about, and I certainly was in the early days, about bankrupting the magazine, about having been given this responsibility by my predecessors and just messing it up. But physical harm, yes, that is quite frightening. And after Charlie Hebdo, the French Humour magazine, where they went in, I mean, I knew the cartoonist Cabot who'd been shot, and the two people who'd done the shooting had seen him on telly, because he appeared on French telly. So that wasn't great. And during the Rushdie affair, again, the level of threat was quite high. Yep. So there are times when it gets less funny.
I'm actually going to ask you about Charlie Hebdo. When that happened, did you ever think that could have been me?
Well, it wasn't helped by a British MP in the House of Commons. I thought, let's not mention there any similarity. Yeah. And she got up and said, I mean, you could just walk into Soho, into the office of private... I was going, shut up!
Yeah, exactly, right? But so is there anything that for you is out of bounds, or is everyone and everything fair game?
I think it's fair game if you can justify it. And I think that's essentially what the editor's job is. You say, if you're going to do this cartoon and it's very bad taste, you should be able to defend it. Why are you doing this? I don't believe in surreal scattergun, I'll just do everything because I feel like it. I think you should be able to say afterwards, or if you look back, you say, the reason I did that is because I thought that was wrong, and then it was justified to do a slightly shocking joke in order to make that point. And I think that is sort of part of what we do. And there are times where this isn't, not everyone thinks it's funny. I mean, in a previous Iranian set of demonstrations, we had a cartoon of a mullah saying to a little boy, "What do you want to do if you blow up?" You see, that's the reaction I like.
Yeah, right.
But again, it was a specific thing, and at the time I did it. Or we had a photograph of the Pope on the cover during one of his major scandals, and it was the Pope at Easter, and he was saying, I remember the days when boys used to enter the priesthood. We didn't sell a lot of copies in Ireland for a few years. But again, they are bad taste, but I feel there's a slight shock value in attempting to make people think, oh, right, that we should be in some way confronting that issue rather than saying, I'm too worried to do it. And that is sort of, again, I did say this previously, but the fact that the American press, who had essentially been very patronizing over the years to the British press, saying, you're pathetic and you're in the gutter and your interests are, childish and whatever. We are part of the Constitution. We are incredibly important. We are the great safeguard. And they rolled over in a year of Trump. I mean, incredible just to see the full-scale apology really, including paying him a great deal of money, and the level of sycophancy which the American media now extends to Trump. And that's quite shocking. So I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
I mean, a recent one, which you may like or may not like, our Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was going to recognize Palestine. I put a picture of Netanyahu on the cover saying, "No one will recognize Palestine when I'm finished." Which, again, is sort of...
It's sad and true as well, right?
Yeah, they're meant to be true, these jokes.
Well, I was going to ask you that, because truth now is not what it used to be, right? In this post-truth era. Isn't it difficult coping with that?
Yes, and I always say, when I first went into journalism, the point of... Private Eye does two things. It does jokes, and then it does investigative journalism. The point is for one to inform the other. It's very odd. There are very few publications that do those two things. But the Eye has always done that from the start, and that's what the founders wanted to do. When I started, you were really trying, and spending a lot of effort, trying to tell people things they didn't know. You were trying to find stories. Nowadays, a lot of what we do is just to point out that stories aren't true. And that is very different. And I mean, it's equally important, but in a post-truth era and with a lot of stuff on social media, and people no longer worry a lot of the time where their information comes from, you do want to be able to say, that isn't true, that didn't happen, there is no evidence for any of this. And when you do that, sometimes it works, sometimes now people just say, well, I believe it, or that is my truth, which is the great Harry and Meghan phrase that was adopted by everyone else. It doesn't matter. This is what I believe, this is what I want to believe, this is what I will do. And part of what we do is an attempt to navigate that.
I should have asked you this earlier, because we're nearly at the end of our time, but Private Eye, I mean, apart from the fictional Lord Nome, you guys run it yourselves, so you're answerable to nobody except for yourself and the libel lawyers, perhaps. Yeah. But you do a television show where you say pretty outrageous things. Isn't there ever a problem with the channel?
There is.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the BBC lawyers are not as sanguine as our lawyers. But they are, again, because it's at one degree, it's an independent company produces it, and the BBC have traditionally been very good at allowing us to make jokes about things that are considered sensitive. And I was once on the show, and there was the man in charge of BBC Television. He was a great friend of Peter Mandelson. You may remember Peter Mandelson was our ambassador to the United States.
Until recently.
Until recently. Yes. He was a friend of Tony Blair's. He was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's.
Exactly. But no impropriety occurred.
And we were told that there will be no mention of Peter Mandelson, because he's been sacked a number of times, and this was, I think, the second time. And we were told on the... Third time. Yes, so no, the occasion on television was the second time, and we were told there will be no mention of Peter Mandelson.
And?
Because he'd borrowed a whole load of money from another Labour politician, which he hadn't declared, and then he'd come out as a homosexual, which another Tory MP. So there was just a swirl of stuff going on about Peter Mandelson, and they said, you're not going to mention Peter Mandelson. And the first question... Paul Merton said, oh, Peter Mandelson.
Really?
He's a home owner.
Oh, dear. And you got away with that?
It went out.
Really?
So they have been very good to us, really, in terms of allowing us, I mean, after X hundred years, to carry on doing this stuff.
Traditionally, print media editors were not that well known, certainly not recognized in the street. With television, you're now pretty famous. You're probably recognized everywhere you go in England. Has that made a difference to how you operate?
I think in the modern world it's been very useful.
Explain that.
In terms of having a print product, which a lot of you, I'm sure, do read, but maybe some of you haven't taken out a subscription yet. It is available.
It's not online, though.
There's no online, but you can get it sent. And the British Post Office at the moment, I mean, you'll get it within a year. Sometimes sooner. So it has been very useful in terms of being a face to connect with a print product. But like yourself, and I am a great believer in print. Yeah. We haven't talked about cartoons, but Private Eye runs about 50 cartoons an issue. The wisdom was that, cartoons, there aren't any anymore, people don't find them funny, no one cares. I came up with this brilliant idea, that I would pay people, which is very new in journalism.
Yes, I can tell you that.
We suddenly found that young cartoonists, there are a lot of them about, and they're funny. I literally had to ring up someone who was posting free online, and I said, I've got this idea. And he said, tell me, and I said, send it to me and I'll give you some money. He's one of our best cartoonists. So that works better in print. They look better, they're funnier. The mixture of jokes and journalism means you don't have to target, you don't have to wait for an algorithm. You're literally, it's your eye is taken from one place to another. If you find local government boring, don't read that page. There'll be another page about something else. There'll be a page about classical music or preserving buildings, or a page about Westminster, a page about agriculture. Essentially, what we're trying to do is have a broad range of interests, all of them enlivened by humour. And I think that's the end of the pitch. But anyway, you don't want to hear that.
No.
You essentially want to hear we're still going. We sell the same number of copies now in print than we did when I took over 40 years ago, which in print terms is a bit of a miracle.
Yeah.
And that, thank you.
You're actually being modest. Your circulation's at an all-time high, isn't it?
It's not an all-time high. I mean, we had a bit of help from this thing called COVID.
Yeah, well, okay.
Where people were at home with not a lot of choice. And we found that we did well. Then again, it's sort of, it's a bit like what you were saying earlier, that sounds a bit unfair, but maybe they didn't have a lot of choice and a lot of options. People had a lot of time. But we did, one of the things that I think helped us enormously is we have a very, very good medical column by a doctor who wrote really well and intelligently and reassuringly during COVID, and he is now covering a major miscarriage in a neonatal unit, and with the advantage of actually having been a doctor in a neonatal unit. So that does help. So we do have specialists, and if I can just say the best campaign we have run recently, and it took us 10 years, was a massive miscarriage of justice with sub-postmasters and mistresses in Britain. And you will know that a lot of the first victims included people from the subcontinent who were entirely the bedrock of their English village, their small town. The idea that there had been no way in which they'd been integrated was completely nonsense. And they had been equally mistreated.
Yeah.
Partly, there was some brilliant campaigning by Alan Bates, and there was a television program about him. So there was a big drama about this miscarriage. And this is sort of how Private Eye works, is that we carry on saying the same thing for years. Slight variations, but quite often the same thing. And we ran this story, and we ran this story, and we ran this story, and eventually Alan Bates versus the Post Office turned into this major television program, which got huge traction and won lots of awards. And finally, the government found that after all, when confronted with an angry population, they could act, and they could start making compensation and reparation. And Alan Bates, who was the main campaigner, he rang me at the end of last year and he said, I want to complain about Private Eye. And I said, oh, sorry. And he said, I want to complain about the last issue. And I said, okay, what? And he said, there was a page in which you didn't mention the postmasters. I mean, he's an incredibly funny guy and a rather inspiring guy. Yeah. And one of the things that we can do is be a megaphone for the campaigners.
Yeah, and you did. It was an incredibly successful and necessary campaign, wasn't it?
And yeah, I mean, and it was brilliant, and it's not over yet. We've got to get Fujitsu to pay up. They were the high-tech company.
The computer system was them, yeah?
Yes, and essentially the case was these people have stolen this money, and they said, no, the computer has failed. The computer has literally got this wrong. And no one believed them, and Fujitsu said right the way through, no, couldn't possibly have happened. And then they remembered that it could have happened, and that there was a mechanism for altering the balances in individual post offices. I mean, it's a really shocking miscarriage. Thousands of people prosecuted. People went to jail. Some people died before it happened. It seems like niche and small, but it was really sort of heart of England, heart of Britain, and it was a massive failure. And they did brilliantly. So, I mean, we're still doing that sort of stuff as well as the cheap jokes, but please do remember them.
Hislop, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, such an honor listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.